Hey, yo, what is going on, you guys? Got a brand new episode of Buy or Bust for you guys today. We're going to be talking about the Cosmic Ghost Rider, the brand new Series 5 card releasing on Tuesday. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the floor, and the ceiling for this card, as well as 3 individual decks for this card as well. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. In case you guys did not know who the Cosmic Ghost Rider is the Punisher as the Ghost Rider, but also it is a 5-cost, 7-power card with the ability, on reveal, remove the text from the front row enemy cards here. So it is the card that is played first and second by your opponent in that singular lane. This is what it looks like on screen. It doesn't have any animation while we are looking at the dev video for this card, but as you can see, both cards are affected by this as well. But I think this card is going to be very interesting. As we talk about some of the key synergies for this card, I want to note Wiccan, if you're running kind of that tech pile of Wiccan, or just another card that you can have extra energy to be able to do what you want. This is a tech card, so it isn't necessarily like an auto plug into a specific archetype, which is why we also have Sarah in here. Sarah, so you can play this and some other cards potentially on 6, but there's also going to be instances where you just play this out on curve. I don't necessarily think you're going to be ramping out this card, which is why I don't have any rampers in here. These are the main 2 cards I was kind of thinking about. I mean, like, it's a tech card, kind of like how it was with Stardust. It wasn't like, oh, well, you have to play these cards with Stardust. It's just, something you can plug into your deck to kind of just offset what your opponent's trying to do kind of situation. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have counters, which some of the key counters for this card are going to be Cosmo. This is an on-reveal card, so Cosmo, stops on-reveals from happening in that lane, as well as Juggernaut. Juggernaut is also incredibly popular still right now. It can offset you trying to Cosmic Ghost Rider a lane, and you end up hitting a different lane opposed to the main combo lane you were trying to offset with Cosmic Ghost Rider, as well as Alioth if you're trying to play Cosmic Ghost Rider a little bit later, or if your opponent did have a Wiccan curve, they could just Alioth you down the lane where you're preemptively, or they're assuming you're going to Cosmic Ghost Rider. Those are 3 of the main cards I think that do offset that. Now moving on to the good and the bad for this card. So first things first, when we come for the good for this card, it can hit 2 cards opposed to just 1. Right? Guardian, of course, is a targeted. It hits the card with the lowest power and remove its ability and afflicts it with -2 power. Whereas this does hit 2 cards as long as they are the first and second card. If there's only 1 card in the row, it only hits 1. Spoiler alert for the bad there. It's a combo disabler opposed to enabler like the fallen one was. This can kind of like offset what your opponent is trying to do because it removes the text of those cards in that first and second played slot in that row. So it can kind of offset ongoing cards. It can offset even on-reveal cards they're trying to do later, offset activate cards, offset just text cards, so it's really solid into that sense. And then, of course, there's a variety of cards that can counter it. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a variety of different cards that this kind of, like, disables that really gives you an edge, which can make it a potential snap condition, too. It is a 5-cost, 7-power card. But, yeah, if your opponent really has, like, the card in the first and second slot, and you're going to Cosmic Ghost Rider, and you know it's going to offset what your opponent's going to do, you're going to be snapping into that, because if you do that, then they probably are just going to retreat. If you Cosmic Ghost Rider before, like, after, like, no snap at all whatsoever, and you've offset what they're trying to do on turn 6, they're just going to leave the game. So if you're trying to get better cube equity, you're probably going to be snapping into a lot of these Cosmic Ghost Rider interactions in order to maximize your cube gain. Now, when we go to the bad for this card, it is a 5-cost card, so it is something you kind of have to waiver. It is something you'd be playing entirely on your turn 5. You can ramp this out, but I don't necessarily know if you want to ramp this out just yet. It really just depends on what the meta is looking like, if it is something you want to ramp out or if it's something you don't want to ramp out. It just kind of got to play it by ear, because, like, you're not ramping out Legion. You could ramp out Stardust, but, like, the only way to really ramp out Stardust is if it gets hit by, like, Surge or, like, a Zabu. Kind of like, I'm just thinking of, like, tech cards here. To kind of offset what your opponent's doing. But this is a little bit less situational than, like, Stardust. Like, this immediately can have an impact for you in the game, opposed to Stardust being situational to, like, what your opponent's trying to do or locations at the time. So that's really just something good to note there. And then, of course, it only hits cards in the front row. If your key card your opponent's trying to play is in the 3rd or 4th slot, like it's played 3rd or 4th in that lane, your Cosmic Ghost Rider is not going to hit them. So that's kind of one of the downsides, is it is a targeted only front row cards. So you can kind of still, your opponents can waiver and kind of play their cards differently, assuming you have a Cosmic Ghost Rider, to make it so it doesn't get hit by a Cosmic Ghost Rider. And, you know, tech cards are also kind of boring. I know that's not really a bad thing that they're boring, but, like, that's the only other bad is, like, woohoo, I played this card. Maybe it has a crazy animation. I mean, like, Firelord's animation is freaking awesome. I love Firelord's animation, if you guys have not seen that. But, yeah, that's the main for the bad here. And then, of course, you know, Jug is very popular, so it can disrupt your play. Jug just wins games right now, so if you're not playing Jug, you always got to play around your opponent having Jug, because Jug is super popular, and it just wins games. So I wouldn't be surprised if you continue to see more Juggernaut, you know, this next week with Cosmic Ghost Rider as well. And then going to the floor and the ceiling for this card. So the worst case scenario, the floor is, you know, it's a late draw and combos have already happened. So it's a 5-7 you'd play. So you can't really offset what your opponent's trying to do with combo-wise. That is the worst case scenario when it comes to this. I think on average, you're going to disable at least one card, you know. At least one card gets disabled. I mean, more often than not, opponents are playing more than just one card in a single lane, so you're going to have options there. But when it comes to, like, well, the on-reveal already happened, so yeah, I'm removing the text, but they already did their thing, so it doesn't really matter there. But, like, in other, like, high best-case scenarios, like, with the ceiling for this card, like, you know, you disable two cards that aren't on-reveal cards that have already procced. You know, they're cards that kind of just can offset what your opponent's trying to do, literally shut down combos, and you're snapping into a lot of these scenarios. Even if it's one card, or if it's two cards, of course, the high roll too, like, you're probably snapping when you're playing this card, because you're going to be disrupting your opponent and what they're trying to do really bad. Oh, yo, Symbiote Spider-Man on the board. I have priority. Boom. Symbiote Spider-Man does not activate into that Nimrod or that Galactus. You just loot the game. So, like, it's really cool. I think with this card, it's kind of boring, but, like, it's cool in the sense, like, we have a different kind of tech card opposed to some of these other ones. I think it's going to be pretty popular, and I think it's going to be very disruptive. I mean, it is a disruptive ability, but let's talk about these three decks we have. As soon as Agatha became more popular, like this season with Redshift, I already was thinking about putting Cosmic Ghost Rider in that list. Pretty much you're doing that instead of Legion. You, of course, have Moon Knight, Lady Sif, Wave, and Redshift as ways to be able to get your Agatha out of your hand. So that's 4 different ways to do that. If you also Moon Knight, there is an opportunity for you to be able to hit your opponent's cards, which gives you that stature value. Of course, Moon Knight can hit your Ebony Blade, can hit your Ghost Rider, and can hit your Redshift. So there are 3 cards that can hit there. But for the most part, you have a lot of odd cards to be able to give you value, so you're not really discarding a lot of stuff that is very beneficial to yourself. So I was just kind of thinking that as like a tech pile Agatha list. I mean, people playing like the Merc Ball Agatha stuff too. And something cool about Agatha, since she already starts in your hand, you already get that pretty much as a draw, so it kind of helps you get your combo pieces later, which is kind of why I was thinking this is pretty solid home to. Also, like, later in game, you can actually use Cosmic Ghost Rider here with your stature in order to get some extra value there, so just something to note as well. And then, of course, we have Cheap and Mean, which is like a Hitmonkey style deck with Mockingbird and Sasquatch. You kind of just have this as like a tech piece in this list. Something you could potentially play down with like a Mockingbird and a Sasquatch, or something you can play with a Hitmonkey. Just kind of thinking about tech and kind of like what Swininja's deck is a little bit too, which shout out to Swininja. Something kind of like that is the concept with this. I don't necessarily know if this is going to be the right tech pile with it. I think you could do like the Sarah things instead, maybe some Sarah Monkey, or you get this out early maybe with, you know, the Merlin and Once in Future, or you have extra energy to do Merlin Once in Future. Like the Sasquatch value is kind of my thought process there. And then, of course, we have, you know, Wiccan. I think Wiccan, Merc Ball with Goliath top end. You have Iron Patriot to fight for, like, priority and stuff. Red Guardian, Gladiator. Just different, just tech pieces here, and pretty just strong base power pieces, looking at Gladiator, Cosmic, and Cannibal. Even looking at Goliath and whatever you generate from Iron Patriot. So just kind of like, that's the general thought process here. You could probably go more towards like a Juggernaut route, but I think Wiccan's definitely going to be a shell that gives you just extra ins and outs to be able to kind of like capitalize on the Cosmic Ghost Rider's value. But talking about this card itself, I believe that this is going to be a pretty strong card. Yes, it does take up your turn 5 play, but I do think the strength of this and what it can do to really offset what your opponent's combos are makes it a snap condition, which is, I think, pretty strong there. Because I think you snap into it or your opponent just leaves for 1. I think you really have to kind of like min-max with this. It just depends, of course, you know, what your matchups are. It's fairly flexible. It is a tech card, but it is a 5-cost tech card, which is not why it's not a 4-star. It's more of a 3-star. If it was cheaper, like a 4-cost tech card, it probably would be a 4 or 5-star in flexibility, because it's easier to kind of flex that, especially with Zabu, you know, Surge, and Mr. Fantastic for steps to be able to be value there. But I still think it's fairly flexible as a tech piece. And being adjusted, if it is too strong, maybe they make it a 5-6. But I think at a 5-7, I think that's pretty much where it's going to live. I don't really see it getting adjusted anytime soon, which is why I do want to say that this is a buy. I do believe this is going to be a very strong tech card. I do think like what it does is very impactful. Before we had the changes to Ghost, I think this was the main card I think that people were waiting for to be able to offset all these end of turn shenanigans. But now that Ghost exists, you've seen the play rate of those decks kind of dialed down a little bit, and this would also make them dial down even more. So that's just something to note here. It's good into also like the Victoria Hand stuff, because Victoria Hand you normally are playing out a little bit earlier too. So like it's just a really solid card into a lot of those different scenarios, and I think it's going to be very impactful on the meta itself, which is why I'm saying you guys should buy this card. But as always, my friends, at the end of the day, I want you guys to buy the cards you guys really want to buy. At the end of the day, you guys play Snap the way you want to play it, and you want the cards that are really going to bring you joy. This is a video game. We do not want it to cause the mental stress and the FOMO of anything, missing out on cards, which feels bad. Definitely is. And, resources are scarce. So, like, if you have a bunch of cards in your snapbacks and you really want Cosmic Ghost Rider, I think the best case scenario is to wait for this card to appear as just a individual buy for tokens. Yes, it is 1k tokens more, but then you don't have to play the odds of having to open packs to try and get this, and inevitably probably spending more tokens to try and get this card opposed to just buying it outright. So if it is something you really want, I would definitely suggest doing it that way. And also, I can be wrong about this card. Maybe it's not going to measure up to like my expectations, but we are theory crafting here. Me and the other content creators that do these videos, we're theorizing. We don't get the hands-on access with this card to be able to like, yo, I know this happens. I know that happens. Even like Second Dinner doesn't do all the testing it needs to do. And cards come out with bugs all the times. I mean, this card didn't even have a VFX in the dev video. So like, just keep that in mind with these cards itself. We don't necessarily know how the meta is going to entirely shift. We do have an OTA on Thursday as well, which also could shift what's going on here. So if you want to wait till after the OTA to get the card, that also might be a smart idea. We have the new season starting the week after this next week. So there's a lot of stuff going on. We don't know what's going to happen with the meta. So if you want to wait and just pin this card, you could also do that. With the data mines and everything too, I'm not entirely sure if you'd want this over potentially the card coming out week 1. So just keep that in mind prospectively too when you go into these weeks and all these resources. There's so many cards releasing every single season, so it's really boiling down to what you really want to play. Do you want to play meta, get the meta cards, or do you just really want to play something that fits your style of Snap? And that's what's just really important when it comes to this game, is getting stuff that you really want to play and something you'll play for a while, not just for one day, not just for 1 week, not just for weekend missions, because the resources are scarce. But yeah, that's going to be the end of Buy or Bust for us today. I want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down below what has been your favorite card of the season so far. Is this something you think you're going to want to have as your favorite card? And have you guys tested any with Firelord? I was watching Fudge's stream, and him playing with Firelord, definitely he was playing a deck from Jet, the freaking GOAT himself, the Phoenix Force GOAT, that I was already thinking about in my head too when I was coming to like play Firelord, and I was like, yo, this is freaking sick. The Firelord animation's great. And, I love Jet decks because I love Phoenix Force itself. Phoenix Force Drawers, stand up. But, yeah, honestly, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, definitely feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. It's been real. God bless, and Tucker out.